I'm sometimes told that my criticisms of Islam are from a literalist perspective, that my problem is not with Islam itself, but with the literalists and fundamentalists such as the Salafis. Many of my Muslim friends argue that the Quran is not meant to be read in a literal and simplistic way. They say that the passages about hell are metaphorical, or the verses about jihad are symbolic. Allah is using human language to convey a deeper spiritual meaning that cannot be conveyed in a simple way. I understand where these people are coming from, since I myself used to say similar things, but ultimately I found this argument had too many holes in it. For a start, most Muslims do take the Quran literally. So if God's aim is to convey this deeper metaphorical meaning, then he has quite clearly failed. In reply to this, I've been told, well, that's the failing of people, not God. But if the message is flying over the head of most of mankind, then either the message is too difficult for most human beings, or human beings are not intelligent enough. In both cases, it is the author of the message, or the creator of the human being, who is at fault. Then there are some who will use the elitist argument that the deeper metaphorical meaning is only for those of higher understanding and knowledge, while the superficial and literal meaning is for the general, ignorant rabble. Personally, I find this argument offensive. But perhaps the true message of the Quran really is only for those select few human beings with a higher or mystical understanding. I'm sure it makes those who hold such beliefs feel very superior to everyone. But that leaves an image of a God who doesn't really care about the vast majority of ordinary human beings. Or perhaps he has a special stupid people's heaven waiting for them. Another problem with the metaphorical argument is that it is extremely difficult to read many of these violent and cruel passages in any other way other than at face value. What deeper meaning can one give to the graphic descriptions of torture in hell that does not involve unbearable suffering and pain for what appears to be simply believing the wrong thing? Or how can one give slaying idolaters a symbolic meaning that doesn't end up being contrived? One example I heard recently was that the word wife in verse 34 of Surah An-Nisa, where God gives permission for a husband to hit his rebellious wife, really doesn't mean one's literal wife, but actually means one's personal creativity. Of course, there is a far simpler and more obvious possibility, namely that the Quran really does mean what it appears to mean, that the verses about hell, fighting infidels, or hitting one's wife really are as harsh and as cruel as they appear to be, and that the author of the Quran is not a divine being, but a human being from a harsh 7th century environment where no one had a problem with a literal belief in hell, slaying idolaters, or hitting one's wife. If there is a God, and he is indeed just and merciful, then he certainly cannot blame anyone for arriving at that conclusion.